Hello everyone, welcome to this video lecture, and we will be talking about some tips in creating online surveys for the purposes of doing quantitative research. So here is our topic outline. So we'll discuss about CHERRIES Guidelines for web-based survey, and then after that we'll talk about some features in using Google Forms for your research, which is usually a common online software application that we make use of when we do research quantitatively online. And then we are going to also talk about preliminary components of online survey for research, and again also some tips for you to be able to maximize the features of online surveys to make the most out of the research that you're doing. So first we'll talk about the CHERRIES Guidelines. So what does CHERRIES mean in the context of internet research? So the CHERRIES means the checklist for reporting results of internet e-surveys. And this has been coined by Eyesenbach in 2004 when online servers were starting to become a thing. So, what are the things that you need to ascertain when you are trying to plan, implement, and report an internet survey? Okay, so first is survey framework and research design, and this is something that we already do when we are doing our protocol, our proposal, our chapter 1 and 2. So, of course, we need to have our research objectives or our statements of the problem in place. We have to have a good conceptual schema, conceptual framework. We have defined correctly the different concepts of the study and the different variables. So basically, we have to have the whole conceptual framework and the conceptual structure of the research be ascertained prior to implementing in an internet survey. We also have to be certain about the research design used. So this is going to be a part of your methodology. So is this a descriptive, explanatory, exploratory research? Is this a quantitative research or a qualitative research, etc.? And of course, you have to be able to plan about your target population. Of course, report the population and the sampling technique that you will use or you have used in your internet survey. So in internet surveys, another consideration is whether you'll do an open survey or a closed survey. When you say open survey, these are surveys that are open to everyone. So you post the link on Facebook or on Twitter, and then everybody who has access to the link, if they want to be able to answer that survey, will be able to answer. So you don't have you don't control or you don't attempt to control who gets to have access to the link, because you just post it publicly on the website. But of course, you also have a closed type of sampling or internet survey wherein we only send the link via email because we just want this specific target people to be able to answer because we cannot just let it out in the open because of certain reasons, like for example our selection of participants are purposive. So for example, if it's about sports athletes or student athletes, you cannot just you can opt to do open surveys. You will place the link, and then in the announcement of your Facebook or Twitter post, you say that I am looking for student athletes. So if you are a student athlete, you can click the link. So that's for open surveys. But for closed surveys, probably you have a list of student athletes already, and then those lists also has an email, have email addresses of the student athletes. So you just send the link to the student athletes. So it's a closed survey. Not everyone has access to the link. You have control over the link. Now, which one is better? It is based on your study. Probably your study wants a really targeted audience, then do closed. But if you feel like you'll be able to access your target participants if you just put it online or put it online on social media or any form of website, then it's also up to you. You just have to justify. And then you also have to think about the ethical consideration in the internet survey research that you are going to do. And we've discussed this in a very early video. So what are the different considerations when we do internet research, like access, consent, protection of vulnerable participants, collection of certain data, privacy, confidentiality, anonymity, etc. And then also, there may be a need for you to access or to be able to secure an IRB or ERC approval. IRB means Institutional Review Board. So we already discussed this in our earlier videos, no? So Institutional Review Board. And then ERC means Ethics Review Committee. So these are basically having the same function. It is just that certain schools or certain institutions make use of the term Institutional Review Board. In the LSU, we make use of the term Ethics Review Committee. And then the goal of this review boards and this ethics review committee is to be able to for you to submit your protocol to them, and they're going to assess whether or not you're able to protect the participants or the respondents of the study from any imminent risk. No? But the good thing is that unless you are studying about a very sensitive topic, like for example sex or drug addiction, or you are targeting specific vulnerable population like the very young, pediatric patients, minors, the very old people, or people with chronic illness, internet surveys are usually very much low risk, no? Because aside from the fact that they're just going to be using 10, 15, 20 minutes of their time to be able to use, there's really nothing that you take away from the participant or respondent when they answer your survey. No? But regardless, no, you have to go for ERC approval. No? Specifically for our school, we have a specific way of doing ERCs. No? And I'll explain that to you when we get there. Then of course we have informed consent process must be present, and I'll explain later. No? So how do we do informed consent process in an internet survey? Because in a paper and pen test, no, in a paper and pen research survey data collection, you can provide the papers to them, and then you can be there to orient them about their ethical rights, no, as participants. You can explain to them verbally. But for internet research, no, internet surveys, you might not have that luxury to be able to meet them personally, no, because especially when you're doing open surveys, the link is just out there. So how do we do in informed consent process in internet surveys? So we'll discuss that later. And of course, data protection, this really talks about who has access to the data. So for example, usually for when you use Google Forms, the raw data will be available in your Google Drive, no. So who has access to that? Who has sharing to that? No. So the answer to that should only be the people who are involved in the research directly. So it's the researchers. No. If you have a manager or you have an advisor or mentor, then they could also have access to the data that you are collecting, because they also have a stake for your research. But no person who doesn't have a stake on your research, even the participants, should not have the access to all of the database. You can give them access to their specific data. You can provide them their own data, no, a single participant. But a single participant cannot have the data of all the participants, no. And then you also have to talk about how you developed the internet survey. So this is both in the development of the actual scales and the questions themselves, like what we have been doing in the previous sessions. We're trying to build upon how do we identify the data needs in order for us to be able to address the variables in the study, and also the development of the actual internet survey itself. And that's what we're going to be talking about in a while. And then also very important is pre-testing. When we say pre-testing, this is before the actual data collection to the actual respondents. You might want to kind of dry run the survey, doing a test run just to make sure that the internet survey will be reacting or responding to the respondents the way you want the internet survey. I had a very, very bad experience in relation to this. We were doing a survey research on a school, and then what happened was that we already gave out the link, and then there's already 1,000 participants who were already who were already able to access the the um, the the survey, and they were able to answer. However, it was late that I realized that there was a wrong decision making in the survey. Now, instead of when they answer yes, the yes should be taking them at the end of the survey and not continue, and then the no should make them continue, and then the decision of the internet survey was assigned differently. And what happened was, those who were supposed to go through the survey were not able to go through the survey, and those who were able those who weren't supposed to be able to go through the latter part of the survey were allowed to go to the part. So that's 1,000 participants that was not that was wasted. That was a lot. So that was a very, very hard learning for me. But we did pre-testing. But we, after the pre-testing, we made changes, and then there was some changes that we didn't really revisit as much as we wanted to. So that was a really very, very scary moment for me. Well, and eventually we were able to do something about it eventually, but that was 1,000 responses that was lost. So that, and then another component of pre-testing is maybe you would still want to do some reliability tests to it, validity tests, making sure that the scales that you're using really measure what you intend to measure, the variables, and then we'll discuss that in the latter part of our class. So as I explained, have how was the survey developed, validity and reliability, and then the pre-testing procedures. Remember, for the pre-testing, it should be other participants, or could the people in the pre-test could not be the same participants for the actual test, because that is going to be erroneous. So you have to find a small number of people who has a similar characteristic to your target audience, and then you can make them answer it, and then probably you can put at the end of the survey some, you can place your comments here. What do you think about about what did you think about our internet survey? Were you able to understand the questions? Do you think that there are some other questions we have to ask? In real life, in paper and pen, you also ask them about, was the language good? Did you understand? Was the layout good? Was it readable? But now, readability is not an issue, because when you use Google's forms, it will just have the same format every time. So readability is not something that you have control over. But yeah, pre-testing procedures for the language, and for the completeness, and probably can ask them, was this too long for you? Was it tiring, or did you have some form of survey fatigue while you were answering this? So that's also one issue that you also have to take note of. Next is planning and reporting the recruitment and access of samples. So like we explained, is this an open or a closed survey? So I explained that earlier. Open, the link is just out there. You post it on social media, and then just hope that the people read your post, and then if they feel like they are qualified or eligible to be a part of your study, then you go. Now, the problem with open survey is that they can just troll you. They can answer the survey, but they're not really the person that you are intending to be. For example, your intention is you wanted a student athlete, and then someone who's not a student athlete just answer the survey. So, but that is one of the risks that we don't have control over. But there are many ways for us to be able to remove people who might have a wrong connotation that they are eligible to be a part of the study, but at the end of the day, they're really not. So we'll explain how we'll be able to decrease the risk of getting trolls or non-verifiable participants out of your study. And then you also have, of course, your closed survey, wherein you are just going to send the link of the survey to the people who is your target via email probably, or probably a private social media channel, like for example Messenger in Facebook, or a DM on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And then, will there be initial contact prior to survey access? So for open survey, there's no initial contact. The very first contact that you have with your respondent is when they click the link, no? But there are some studies wherein they're going to do an internet survey, but there was a previous initial contact. Like for example, there was a call first. So I'm crowdsourcing. I want to know who among my social networks, or who among those who can see this post is pregnant. For example, you're looking for pregnant people, and then they answer. No, and then that's the time you send them the link. So the crowdsourcing that you did was the initial contact. No, for example, you have a different relationship with them first before they become your respondents. For example, your classmates. So you had an initial contact to them as classmates. You may probably recruit them separately, and then saka ibibigay. That's the time you provide the link. No. So, and then how will you advertise the survey? So you, again, for open surveys, advertising the survey would be good. When I say advertising, it's not really the commercial, but really how will you make sure that there are more people who have access to the link? Because usually, in my experiences, when you do open surveys, the response rate is quite not what we want or imagine. And probably that's the same for you. When you see a link, diba, on Facebook, diba? And you feel like I should answer it, no? But you don't, because it's either you are too lazy to answer, or you feel like you're not interested. And it's going to be the same thing, no, when people see the link. So not everyone is going to be interested. Not everyone is willing to devote their time. So you really need to be creative and be strategic, so that people will have access to the link. So some people will do QR codes, so it's going to be easier for them to access the link. Some, for example, in my case, no, I post it on a page, and then the page I will provide money to Facebook to advertise it, no, to boost the post, so that there are more people going to see it if it's an open survey, you know. And then you can probably also advertise it via a good poster. I remember I was able to see a viral post wherein there's a group of psychology students who used a meme as an advertisement, and it went viral, and they got thousands and thousands of participants because they got many people interested. So maybe you can do that, as long as, of course, you're not violating any ethical rules. And then, how do you actually perform your survey administration? So how do you administer the survey? So one, do you do it web or email? For example, web, this is good for or open surveys. So you place the link on the social media or whatever website you are using, no? And then email, no? Or either email it to them if you have personal knowledge of who these people are, you know. And then you have the context of the website, no? So you have to explain a little bit, why did you choose Facebook as an avenue for you to post the link? Why Twitter, no? So in reporting, you have to explain why you use Facebook or whatever, no? Or if there's a website, for example, you wanted to use the website of, let's say, a popular store brand of sports goods. Why did you want to put the link there? No, if they allow you, hopefully they do. Why did you put it there in the website of a sports goods, no, store? And then what are the incentives that you offer, no? So some, especially for student research studies, there's no incentive, and that's fine, especially if it's just a short survey. You don't really need to provide them with incentives. In the real world, when you do paper and pen surveys, you have to give at least small tokens, like for example a candy, a very meager snack, or probably you can give them the ball pen that they used to answering the survey. But of course, in doing online survey, there's no way to do that, no? But for long surveys, there are many strategies that researchers use. I'm not saying that you should use them, especially if you're not going to really do a very long study, no? But some people, they do raffles, no? Those who want to be eligible for a raffle, for example, they want to give like 100, 200 pesos Gcash for, let's say, 10 participants. And those who are willing, you don't force, but those who are willing to give their numbers away, for that you can do it, no? But you have to be very careful, no? Because you don't want to do undue influence, no? Because I also have seen very long survey, and then their price is a raffle for an iPad, no? And this is but I think it's afforded. It's okay because It is done by the Epidemiologic Bureau of the United Kingdom when I saw that. And it's a very, very long survey. I think in order you have to answer it for like 40 minutes. No? So for it to be worth it, you have to have at least some chance to be able to win iPads, I guess. And then the extent of time that you are going to that you think the participants or the respondents will answer your questions. And that's the reason why you have to have your pre-test, because you have to also ask them how long did this take you to answer, and that's going to give you an average of how long it will take. And then randomization of items, will you be randomizing the items, or will there be a structured way of presenting the items? In Google Forms, it doesn't afford a way for us to be able to randomize the items like what we do when we do quizzes, but probably some e-surveys can do that. But for research, I don't think there are not many research studies that will have to require to randomize the arrangement of the questions. And then adaptive questioning, like conditional. Like, for example, if you answered yes in number 14, please answer this question. So that's an example of adaptive questioning. Not everyone gets to answer the next question because that question is based on the previous question. So that's adaptive questioning. And there are many strategies that you can do in order for you to do that in an online survey, and to make sure that they are able to answer it based on what is really the truth about them. The number of items and pages. So how many items and pages? So I'll say it outright. How many pages do you need? So one page, one variable. So one page for social demographics, one page for your main variable, one page for your outcome variable. And if you have other variables other than that, but you don't put them all in one page, because the page is needed for you to be able to have some sort of psychological separation of the variables. And then completeness check. Will there be a way for you to be able to tell the participant, the respondent, hey, you were not able to finish the survey, please come back to the items that you weren't able to answer, which is again a function that you can do for Google Forms, and which you should do, especially if there's no adaptive questioning. If it's just the straight up answering of the scale, you have to make sure that every question is a required question. And then we have review step. Maybe you want to afford them the option to be able to review their answers, etc. And then also you have to keep track of the responses. Google Forms may not have this, be able to measure how many visitors you have for the site where you posted it, and then how many viewed, how many participated, and who were able to complete. The only information that Google Forms will provide you is how many were able to complete. And then you also have to do ways to prevent entries from the same individual. Like, for example, in Google Forms, do they have to answer strictly while they're signed in, and then you're going to say to Google Forms that, hey, if this person already signed in, and if this person already answered this, and then they click the link again, the survey will tell them that, no, you already answered this question, you can't answer again, because there is a danger that one person, for example, in the middle, gets internet disconnected, and then their answers went in, and then they decided to do it again. So that's a double entry, and that will compromise the quality of the whole database. So what I will promote, as a tool that you can use for internet surveys, Google Forms. I'm not saying that this is the only one you can use. This is just that this is the one that I use the most, because it's a very friendly features. But I also made use before of SurveyMonkey. They have an option for you to make sure that the IP address is recorded, so that when a certain person from an IP address answers the survey, they can no longer access it again using the same IP address. So that's another way, But so far for me, what I use is Google Forms, because it's basically connected to other office functions like Excel. So hopefully at least once in your lifetime you've already seen what's inside Google Forms. So where do you go in order for you to get to Google Forms? You Google Forms at google.com. I suggest you make use of your DLSU account so that you'll have a large storage space and you can enjoy the benefits of that. So this is where you place the title of the survey, and then you can put a description here if you need it, and let me just explain to you the different parts. So this is for this sidebar. You have a button for adding question, and then if you have, for example, you are a prolific researcher, you have a lot of research and you have already other surveys before, and probably you have already a store of questions that you can use for another survey or another research. For example, social demographic profile, you already have a set of that under your in your Google Drive, so you can already import the questions, so you don't have to do again the creation. And then you can also add title and descriptions here later, just in case you want to give more information on how should they respond to a specific specific survey question. You can also add image. I don't know why you would do that, but if you think you need to write an image to put an image or a video, you also have affordances for that. And then if you want to go to the next page, then you do add section. And then this window is basically a window for editing, and then there's a different window for those who want to answer. Of course, for the editing, you only have access to the editing as the researchers, and as the form developer. And then these are the different questions that you can ask. Now, it could be a short answer. For example, you're asking for, let's say, what is your occupation? So you want them to just answer very briefly, or you can also put here a paragraph, if you want a more open-ended question. But I don't think that's going to be useful for you for a qualitative research. You can also do multiple choice, just like this one. There's also check boxes if you want them to answer more than once. You can also do drop down. It's also like what do you call this, multiple choice, but of course it's dragged down, so it's just a different presentation. And then you have here file upload if you want them to upload a file. Again, for quantitative research, I don't think you need that but for other forms of submissions, like probably you need to, like you've done this in our school already. You had to upload a file of your document, so that you can also have that. But in research, I don't think you're going to need that. You can also do a linear scale, and this is going to be helpful for you. Linear scale, multiple choice grid, and checkbox grid is going to be important for you when you do your scales. So this is your go-to for the scales. And then you can also ask to place a date or a time, but again, I'm not sure how it's going to be useful for you for your survey. So usually the useful ones are here, ito, and then probably short answers, and these three, are going to be useful for you in establishing or constructing your online questionnaire. And then you have here the others, so you have here the copy. So if you think that you're going to use a lot of multiple choice questions, you can just copy the previous questions, so you don't have to change much. You just have to change the question and not anymore change the title. You just have to change the title of the question, but not anymore the choices, probably. And then you can also, of course, delete, and then this one very important, don't forget to press this, required, so that before they move to the next section or the next page of the forms, we make sure that they have a complete answer to all. And in this area, this is where you edit a specific question. Now, as I explained earlier, when you're doing an online survey, especially if it's an open, there's a tendency for people to troll you, or there may be some person who will answer but didn't really understand your invitation. They were asking for elite athletes, and you weren't able to to read the word elite and you answered anyway because you thought you were an athlete, no? So you can have like qualifying questions. Like for example, the first page could be just asking, are you 18 years old and above? And if they answer no, for example, they're 17 and below, then submit form, no? They will no longer be allowed to go next, no, because they're not going to be eligible. So you can, in the early pages of the paper, can already start filtering and excluding the people who you think. So asking, for example, yung nga, elite, no, are you an elite athlete? Yes, no. If they answered no, then they will not be able to go through the next part, no? Or for example, there was a study that we did. We only wanted people who were into MOBA gaming, no? So there was a question, would you consider yourself a MOBA gamer? And then when they say no, they will not be allowed to go through the next study. So be very conscientious. What would be the first qualifying questions, no, that I have to ask prior to the survey proper, so that I am filtering out the people who are not supposed to be answering. So this one is always one part of the qualifying questions, because we don't want minors being able to access or continue because we need their parental consent, and if we were not allowed to get them for parental consent without parental consent, they're not supposed to be, a part of this, no? And then in order for you to be able to have these conditions, no, you can click these three dots and then you can provide the description. So there's a description. You can provide description per item, and then this is go to section based on answer. So this is what will come up, no, the one with that, and then you can also do shuffle option order for this one, no, but I'm not sure how that's going to be very useful for you, no. This is probably for Google form quiz, no, but for research, usually the order of the questions are standardized. Okay, there's no logic behind trying to rearrange them. And then I asked you, and then I told you earlier, how do we get informed consent when it's an open survey and you don't have really a personal contact with the participant? You can do it, after the qualifying questions. So I don't know how many qualifying questions you would need for your survey. But after that, before they go through answering questions based on the variables, you have to give them the informed consent first to read, no? So what are the components that should already be part? So you will say that they are being invited to participate, right? You give them the title of the research. You tell them who you are. And what is your affiliation, no? So you pakilala, no? Introduce yourself. And then give them a short information on the objective of your study, no? For example, in this case, I tell them that, I want to be able to see how sports participation and quality of life are related, and then what is its relevance to society or to the stakeholders, no? And then I will tell them information on who I want to answer the study and where I am conducting the study. So I am conducting it via these apps, no, and then I'm sending invitation via links, and then those are limited from 1980 to 99 because I wanted millennials. So again, I can put a qualifying question earlier, no, what year were you born, and then I give out options, and if their options was not within 1980 to 1999, I will not let them even see this informed consent form anymore, because they're not really who I am interested in. And then you tell them why you are inviting them. So they passed the qualifying round, they passed all the qualifying questions. So you are invited because after all those qualifiers, it seems like you who is answering is a millennial and is also married, no? And then you tell them what are the risks that they have for participating in the study. Again, if your variables are not really sensitive, they're not really asking about mental health, sex, hygiene, drug use, or any socially implicating behaviors or attitudes or beliefs, then I don't think there's going to be a risk, no? So I understand that I will not receive any form of remuneration. So this is in relation to what do you call this, whether or not they're going to get incentives, no? Again, if you notice, I am already using I, no, the pronoun I, because as we are orienting the participants by them reading this, this is also a statement that they are saying once they agree, no? So, and then of course, you have to say that it is voluntary. Hindi yan mawawala. It should not be gone, no? That the participation is voluntary and that they can withdraw from the study anytime. For example, in the middle, they just feel like, I don't want to continue this anymore. Then they can leave, no? And it will not going to be affecting my standing anywhere, no? And then you also have to tell them that your research will be published, no? You might be published, and that how many minutes are they expected to answer this, no? And then data will be kept strictly confidential and will be revealed only upon request or consent. And then if you have any questions, you write your name, your mobile number, and your email, no? And then probably you can also provide here the information of the ethics review committee, no, who approved the protocol. And then there's a statement here that I agree to participate by pressing the agree button. So if they see agree or yes or no here, if they say yes, then they will go to the next part. If they say no, then they will leave already the survey. So you can make use of this template for your, and you just have to change some parts, for example, the title, the objectives of the study, why they're invited, no, based on the specific characteristics of your study. So here, no, in this part, you already tell them, so if they agree or say yes, then they can continue to the next section. They say no, then submit na yung form. They will not be allowed to go to the next part. And then after that, you now create the survey form for the different questions, no, that you need, no? And probably you have experience for this. So basically what I'm teaching you is on, what are the things that you need to do before you start asking the questions that are specific to your variables. Okay? So in this video survey, no, or video lecture, I was able to give you some tips in creating online surveys in the context of research, no. I will be providing other supplementary materials related to creating Google Forms, no, as a part of this. But basically, the goal of this specific video lecture is just to give you information on how online surveys are different. Online surveys on research are different from the usual online surveys. For example, it's for marketing. This is not that, no? So, kasi, as you can see, there's a qualifying question, there is an informed consent that involved, and there are many processes that you have to take. Like, for example, the CHERRIES Guidelines have to be followed, no? So, and hopefully, this video and the upcoming video and the other supplementary videos on Google Forms that I will provide will help you in terms of creating the goods online survey form for your research.